This week, we're going to be discussing a generalized knee pain management program. We're also going to give you a little bit of an overview of the anatomy of the knee so that you can better understand the injury that you have to help yourself get out of it.
Where does knee pain come from? It comes from a variety of places. One thing we can look at is muscular imbalances. An example of a muscular imbalance is a knee valgus. Cameron is showing us a knee valgus. This occurs when the knee tracks inside of the middle toes. This can come from a weakness, a tightness on the inside of the hip, or even on the outside of the hip. But even though that's happening at the hip, it's going to affect how the knee looks in the movement and how the knee feels. Another muscular imbalance that can lead to knee pain is a posture that we hold. So if we're not aligning our posture and stacking our joints, if we're collapsing our posture, maybe arching into the low back, that can affect the hips by tightening them up, which is going to trickle down to the knee. Or if we're not getting a strong step with our foot, that's going to trickle up and affect the knee as well. Come on, Cameron. Come on. Repeated impact or overuse can also cause pain to the knee. So when we're repeating a movement that's inefficient and it's in an imbalanced system, we can start to develop pain. And it's from these chronic imbalanced movements that it gets worse. Trauma or direct impact to the joint can also cause knee pain. If it's severe enough, it can cause a direct injury to the knee. Even impact going above or below the knee can have so much force, Jess, that it trickles down and injures the knee. A ligament sprain or meniscus tear could also be a dramatic side effect from tripping, from overuse and repeated strain on an imbalanced system and an imbalanced system in general. So we want to check in on all those imbalances, strengths, weaknesses, and build strength to the knee. Sometimes we can be predisposed to knee pain based on our anatomy and our biomechanics. That anatomy sometimes creates muscular imbalances that are hard to pinpoint where they come from. That's where we come in. This is what we do at 3Wave. We do personalized programming. We do assessments so we can work with how you move and check in on you to make sure you're moving efficiently for your mechanics, your imbalances, your system, your goals, your way, all the time.
Our knee joint is a relatively simple joint. It's where our femur and tibia meet, and we also have the fibula that meets here as well. So we have our femur, which is the top bone, and our tibia, which is the bottom bone, and then we have this little guy along the side to help support that tibia. In between those two structures, we have what's called the meniscus. The meniscus is a little shock absorber that sits in between the knee. So essentially you have two bones that are relatively flat, and you need a little bit of a cushion in order to let them glide on each other really well. Because this is a hinge joint and all it does is bend and extend with very little rotational movement, we usually look above and below for problems that are going on with the knee, not usually directly at the knee unless we've had damage. In addition to these structures, we also have what's called ligaments. So we have more than 4 ligaments, but the 4 main ligaments are going to be our medial, lateral, anterior cruciate ligament, and posterior cruciate ligament. These keep the bones held together. On top of that, we also have muscular tissue. Muscular tissue is what allows that knee joint to actually move. So while the ligaments and bones are the structure, the muscles are actually our cables that allow us to move. After that, we also have what's called bursas. Bursas are fluid-filled sacs that actually lubricate the joint and also act like a cushion. Our knee actually contains 6 of them, but 2 of them are actually under the patella. This is why sometimes you get that swelling under your patella and it feels firm to the touch. This is going to be a straight leg adductor stretch. So we're going to get ourselves down to the ground on our knees to start. If your knee is tender or has difficulty in this position, make sure that you put a pad under your knee just to support that a little bit better. We're going to put our hands down on the ground and we're going to extend one leg outwards. So I'm going to put one leg out, starting with my toes facing forward. Okay, from here we're going to rock forward and backward. Once you've gotten comfortable and you start rocking forward and backward, we want to make sure that we maintain a neutral pelvic position. So I don't want my back to start curving as I'm rocking forward and backward. I want it to stay nice and neutral, my hips staying down towards the floor to get the best stretch out of my adductors. The more I curve my spine, the more I'm actually going to contract my adductors, and I want them to relax. So as we do this, if you want a little bit of extra, you can actually rotate your toes up towards the ceiling as you rock backwards and rotate them down as you rock forwards. Try to go nice and slow and breathe as you do it. This drill is a lateral quad foam roll. We're going to be doing this for more of a neurological response. That means that we're doing it to get the muscle to relax so that we can actually train it better. Keep in mind that foam rolling doesn't fix your pain. It just decreases it for a small period of time and gives you a window to constructively use. So we're going to put that foam roller down on the ground and we're going to face the foam roller to start over top of it. So I'm going to orientate my quad on top of that foam roller. Remember to hold your weight with your arms because you don't want to put too much pressure initially. I'm going to slowly set up my other leg so that I can roll onto my side. From here, I'm going to lightly roll at the base of my quad first, and then go up towards the top of my quad second. Now to augment this and make this better, we're going to try to go through a bend and extend. So as soon as I find a tender point, I'm going to flex at the knee and I'm going to extend at the knee. This can be challenging for some people as it can be a little bit uncomfortable. So go within your own range. Make sure that you can breathe because that also helps with the neurological response and benefit. This is a quad stretch with proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, also known as PNF. Make sure that you're close to an object so that you can hold onto the wall to make sure that you don't lose any balance. So you're going to put your hand on the wall and grab your heel, or grab your foot rather. From here, we're going to go into a posterior tilt, tilting my hip bones slightly upward and squeezing my glute in order to get a better quad stretch. From here, I'm going to start pulling that heel towards my bum without pain. Make sure you're breathing. You don't ever want to go into pain, especially with knee pain, because you could be forcing something that you shouldn't be. Once you hit your end range and you're feeling a nice stretch, make sure you try to kick into your hand. So I'm going to lightly press into my hand with my foot for 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and slowly release. And as I release, I can actually pull my heel closer to my bum. So I'm getting a deeper quad stretch now. You can do this a few times until you hit your absolute maximum end range, as long as you're not getting pain. For added benefit, you can actually internally and externally rotate at the hip to get different fibers down the quad. As I rotate outwards, I feel more inside aspect of my quad. As I rotate inward, I feel more outside aspect of my quad. Now, for whatever reason you can't reach your foot, you can always use assistance. So I'm going to gently pull with this band in place so that I don't have to reach my foot.
This is a side lying clamshell. This is going to help to open up the hips and fire on the muscles that externally rotate and open up our leg at the hips. So I'm going to lie all the way on my side. You can always have a pillow here. I'm just going to rest on my hand. So our setup in this is really important, even though it looks very simple. I have my feet together, knees together. My hips are going to be stacked. If I just relax, you can see that my hip shrugs a little bit and I crunch into here. So I just want to make sure those hips are one on top of the other. To do that, I'm going to feel my core fires on a little bit so I'm not just sinking into the mat. Shoulders are stacked as well, and then I'm just relaxing my neck. So from here, you can brace yourself on the floor if you need to, or I like to pinch my hip to make sure it doesn't rotate. From here, I'm going to pull my knees apart. The goal here is to keep the movement strictly at where the leg attaches in the hip. So my hip should stay fixed. I don't want to see that I roll back. So I'm just going to carefully control that. So slowly I'm going to pull up and I'm going to feel that I meet this resistance if my hip is staying stable. I want to hold that resistance just for a bit to really feel that out and create a good amount of tension. And then I'm going to control it back down. So you want to make sure you're not just dropping it down or you're not getting a shrug or a rotation at your hip as you go through. So I like to exhale on the way up. Especially if you're experiencing a little bit of pain, the breathing and exhaling and inhaling properly can just help remind your body that this is a safe movement. This is a prone single leg hamstring curl. This is going to help us get proper hip extension in our hip so that we can activate the hamstring with all the hamstring muscles working and with support of the glutes, so we have a stable pelvis throughout the movement. So I'm just gonna cross my arms, and normally I would rest my forehead here, but I'm gonna talk to you, so I'm going to lift my head up. So for here, I wanna think about aligning my posture. It's really important to think about activating our core by pulling up on the pubic bone or pulling upward on your belly button. And then I also draw down gently on my ribs, but keep my spine long. If I don't have that core activation, I'm more likely to arch my back, which is actually going to make it harder to use the hamstring properly and use all the hamstring muscles involved. So I find that alignment. And then from here, before I actually do the leg curl, I'm just going to extend my hip a little bit by lifting my knee. When we do this, we want to make sure the hips don't twist over. So I'm just going to do that lift while checking in with my core, and my glute has come on and one of my hamstrings has started to fire. So from here, holding that little knee lift, I'm then going to curl up. So this way you can kind of see the whole muscle belly of the hamstring firing on. I control that, drop down and reset. Lift the knee, pull up, control it down, drop the knee. Once you feel comfortable with that, you can smooth out the process, but we want to make sure you're getting that extra step of the knee lift so that you don't just start pulling through here and start moving through that lumbar spine, right? We're here to train hip extension and train knee extension and flexion. If this gets too easy, you can always wrap a band around your heel or ankle to add resistance. Just make sure you can always still keep your hips stable and you can still get that slight knee lift for control to own the movement all the way through. This is a side lying adductor squeeze. So this is a great exercise to help bring stability to the inner thighs, the adductors, while also working on keeping our hips and core stable. All around good fun. So I'm going to relax my head here. I want to make sure my posture is all aligned as we did with the clamshell. So for here, my knees are together and I'm just going to bring them up to 90 degrees and I want to feel nice and stable and supported. This one is a very small movement because this is harder than it might seem. So the first version is to take our top leg and just try to squish our bottom leg. But you just want to check in and make sure you haven't fired on your hip flexor or your glute meter TFL. We want that inner thigh adductor to come on. So I'm just going to squeeze and hold and then release. Squeeze the top leg in, hold, release. This might feel a bit funny, so it helps to have a pillow, a cushion, a yoga block to squeeze into. Helps if you have a friend helping you with it, not Jess. So we're just gonna add our nice little foam here. So now you can see that I'm gonna squish, create a little tension, and just checking in that it's not my hip flexor doing the work. So to up the ante, you would want to try and squeeze the bottom leg instead. This is a little tougher and you'll have to really check in that that core is working with you. So on here, I'm just gonna fire up that left leg. That was a little tougher for me than the top one. And then just control it down. So again, check in that you're not all of a sudden pulling from the front of the hip. We want to make sure that those adductors are getting fired on, doing the job they're supposed to do. That's where the core is really important. If we don't have the core working to align your posture, you might be arching, which is actually going to make it harder for those adductors to fire on. They're going to feel like they're really tight. So this way we line everything up and get a good contraction, getting aware and connected with that adductor. And then hitting your friends. Sorry.
Hey, thanks for watching. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about specific knee injuries and pain patterns and solutions for each one. But in the meantime, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us on social media. Finally, we have a Patreon page. We'd love it if you'd give us some support there. And you can also find great options for working with us so we can help you achieve your goals. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Wait, I have more.